Today we're going to learn how to use selective color to turn everything in this image black and white except for the woman's red dress. So we're selectively showing off one color in the image and making everything else black and white. That might be really useful if we're advertising the dress. Could be a really cool way to do that. I linked to a tutorial that uses this image to show you how to do it by another artist. And it's a useful tutorial because they show you how to just use the paintbrush to do it without fiddling around with Photoshop's selection tools, because some people feel overwhelmed by them. However, it is more advanced and more helpful in the long run if you learn how to use those selection tools to select an area, rather than just trying to use the paintbrush. So I'm going to show you the more complicated way of doing it, but a really useful skill about using selection tools to select the dress rather than just trying to use the paintbrush. So the first and most important thing to understand is even what a mask is and how you're going to do it, because we're going to use masking. So the first thing I'm going to do is just turn the image black and white, and just for ease, I'm going to click the gradient map and everything turns black and white. Now, whenever we've used adjustment layers before, you've always seen this white square pop up, but we've never talked about it. Well, what that white square is a mask. And what masks do is they let you apply this adjustment, in this case the gradient map, to a specific area. By default, there's nothing masked, meaning it's applying it to the whole image. When nothing's masked, a mask looks white. So whatever area is white, it means that effect is going to apply over that area. However, if I were to go with the paintbrush, as they explain in the tutorial, you will see that areas that are black, you're blocking out that effect in the black area. So I'm going to just turn this black and white, hit the little icon here that makes these black and white, and don't do what I'm doing. I'm just going to show you really quickly. If I go with a paintbrush, and I paint black, if I have the mask selected, and I paint black, woof, anything I paint black on will come back into color. And you can see my marks right there. So where the black is, that's the effect is blocked from applying to that area. Similarly, if I paint with white, that area will turn black and white again. Black and white. It'll make the effect go to that area. So that's the gist of a mask. Paint it black, it stops applying. Paint it white, it does apply. I'm going to go to my history tab and just undo that. Now, that's what they explain how to do. They say just go in and paint black over her dress and it'll show through. Voila. What I'm going to actually do is use the selection tools to do it, because once you get used to them, they're really fast. So what I want Photoshop to do is select just the red dress. So actually, I'm going to hide this filter or this adjustment layer for a minute, because Photoshop is going to analyze this picture for me. And in this case, having the color in the picture makes it more likely that I can select what I'm looking for, because it won't bleed into the background. It makes it pop. I'm going to click on the background layer again so that I'm on that layer. And I'm going to go up to the selection tools, which are the fourth tools down. You can click and hold it down and it'll pop out the selection tools. Now, if you've had me before, we've used the quick selection tool before, but it now has something called the object selection tool, which is really useful. Wish I had it before. Glad it's here now. So I'm going to go to Object Selection Tool, and you'll see it's asking you, do you want to draw a rectangle over the area you want to select, or a lasso? I'm going to let it stay on rectangle, but once you see how it works, you may later want to go up to lasso and use it if that better serves your purpose in the future. And what this tool does is I'm going to draw a rectangle over the dress, and Photoshop is going to analyze the picture, whatever's inside the rectangle, and guess what it is in that rectangle I want to select. So I'm just going to click and drag over the dress, let go and let Photoshop do its thing, and boom, it selects what it thinks I wanted. In this case, it's pretty close. So I'm gonna have to make changes to it, but we're off to a really good start. Um, and now I'm gonna fiddle with it and get rid of the things I don't want it to select, like the hand, the arm, the head. But it starts by doing a pretty good job. Now I'm gonna zoom in. I'm using a touchpad, so I'm just pinching and pulling using my fingers. You can use the scroll bar on the mouse, or you can use the magnifying glass to zoom in. And what I'm gonna do is look around to see where I want it to what areas I don't want it to select. So in this case, I'm going to go back to the selection tools, and I am going to use the quick selection tool to add or subtract from this. I think that's easier. There are other options. You can try to, I'm just going to do that. So I'm going to go to this quick selection tool, and what you'll now see over here is plus means I'm going to add to my selection, and minus means I'm going to subtract from my selection. In this case, we don't want to add anything. It didn't cut off any of the dress. We just want to get rid of the stuff like her body and her head, have that not selected. So I'm actually going to go to minus for getting rid of it. And this is your brush size. So what you want to do is have a brush size certainly no bigger than the area you want to select, because again, Photoshop's going to analyze. You're going to drag with the brush, and it's going to look at the pixels under that brush to decide what it thinks you wanted to add or subtract. So if your brush is really big, you're going to be touching on pixels that you don't want to subtract, and it gets messy. And then I'm just going to click and drag in the area I want to deselect. So I'm going to drag over her arm, and you'll see as I do it, I clicked and I just let go. It got rid of her arm. I'm going to where her armpit is. I'm going over her head. And I'm being really careful not to touch the dress because I don't want to subtract from the dress. I just made a little click there. And it did a pretty good job. I'm going to zoom in even further because I can see there's some stuff with her hands and maybe a little bit up here that I want to add because it cut off too much. So I'm zooming way in, and I'm going to go back to now adding some of the dress in. So I'm going to the plus, and I'm going to make my brush, like I said, much smaller. You want it to be about the size of the area you're trying to work in. To do that, I'm hitting the bracket keys next to the P. The left bracket makes it smaller. The right bracket makes it bigger. So I'm going to just add that back in. Going with a little tiny brush, add that back in. I'm going to subtract out some of this area here because it's a little too much. And then I'm going in with a really small brush. I'm just going to subtract out her fingers. And, you can go all the way around and just see if there's any other little pixels or anything that you don't like. Because obviously you could get super zoomed in and make some very fine adjustments. And now I've got the dress selected. Okay, that is just a selection. It means, I can see her pinky. Actually, I'm going to leave that off for a minute. I'm going to show you something else. So this hasn't done anything but select the dress. So what I'm going to do now, like we haven't done anything to the selected area. It's like just saying this is the area we want to select. I'm going to turn on the visibility, bring back my black and white, and click on my layer mask, that white square. And now, and the reason this is really quick is all I need to do is make sure this is black and white again by clicking the little black and white icon and flip it over. And I am going to use the paint bucket tool. So I'm going to click in this area over here. Huh. It doesn't want me to use, it might be the layout I'm in. Interesting. Okay. In this layout, it doesn't like the paint bucket tool. So I'm going to just switch over to maybe the essentials layout. And that'll bring in the paint bucket tool. What a paint bucket tool does is it just fills in everything in the area that's selected. And so when I click, it fills it in black and we're done. Now what I was gonna, and you can see the black here, there's the dress. And I'm gonna deselect. So you can go up to select and deselect or Command D. And if you see anything you don't like, you can still go in with the paintbrush and make changes. So if anything looks wrong, you could still go in, like I can see there's a little bit of color on her finger, for example, if I were to really be picky. And I can still go with just the regular paintbrush and a small brush size and paint black over that. Oops, sorry. Paint white over that, right? I want it to be black and white. And now her finger is black and white. So you can still go in and use the paintbrush for any fine adjustments you want. Paint black where you want the black and white filter to be. Paint white if you decide, paint white where you want the black and white filter to be, because then it'll apply, and paint black if you don't want it to apply, because I can still use that, right? I could still go in and say, boom, I want all the area around her in color and paint black and white over it, or I could go in and have her have a stripe across her and paint white over it. So it's up to you. And then save it as a JPEG and you're done. So again, it's a more complicated set of steps, but if you like doing effects in Photoshop, learning how to use these quick selection tools is really key. I use them all the time because I do things with effects, and they are let you make some great selections and adjustments quickly as you get used to them that are precise. All right, either way, do the assignment and give it a go and hand it in and have fun with it.